Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of OverBOTCH, the Overwatch League podcast from your favorite animals, the Plexomatic Cookie himself, the Great Root Bear representing the hockey folk people today with Yamamoto Bear, and yours truly, of course, the Drama King. Everybody, how's everybody feeling after this past weekend?
Not gonna lie, a little bit booed after seeing certain results not go our way, but
Yeah.
we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
All I know is Super Black Guy was bang on.
Yeah.
We as
With
we
his completely, it was amazing.
in our previous chat, our match of the week. Spoiler alert: we were all wrong.
It's a little bit wrong.
Something you will hear undoubtedly, I'm sure, more times throughout this season. We were all wrong.
Can we just agree that we suck at making these predictions?
Yes. But that is the fun. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Damn it. I refuse to back down from rampant speculation.
Yeah.
So, but regardless, our first kind of topic of the day is we're going to recap the weekend and just talk about how the brackets are set. We'll take a really quick look at the actual brackets for the Kickoff Clash show. Here we're going to start in the West. We had the selections at the end of all the games this week. So the top 4 seeds got to select their opponents. And it was Mayhem, one of the biggest, made the top 4.
Oh,
yeah. Did indeed.
Was I don't want to say like a total surprise because like they looked interesting at the beginning. They've stayed in them, but I think we talked about like they're going to have to punch up to get into those top 4 kind of spots, and lo and behold, they did.
Yeah, and I think realistically that's off the back of some really good coaching. Because one thing I've noticed in recent games is the idea of counter comping. Sorry, it's like we've seen against Houston Outlaws, they tried the checkmate Sombra, and obviously against the Justice. This is something I picked up on, which I never really noticed. I'm not sure if it's a general thing or not. Notice Hydron's positioning. Because typically with the soldier in these compositions, these dive compositions, you'll see the soldier on an off angle. It's like it goes 2-1-2. So you have the Winston Tracers one team. You have the soldier on the off angle, and then you have the supports. Hydron was on the off angle, but the supports were with him. So essentially, as Mag was trying to dive in, he had Helix rockets, sleep darts.
And in addition to all the sustainability of having your backline, having your back, in addition to the fact that soldiers got some pretty good sustain as well.
And what I thought was really smart was their Gibraltar attack round, Mayhem, because they start off with checkmate Genji, Hydron Widowmaker.
Yeah,
they swapped Hydron to the Tracer, which I thought was really clever because if, let's say, Justice wanted to match that, they can't because Decay is both the Tracer and the Genji, while Happy's the Widowmaker. So in order to actually match up, they'd have to swap Decay onto Genji, Happy onto Tracer, which resets 2 ultimates.
Sure.
Whereas with Mayhem, let's say they wanted to go back to Widowmaker, only one change because checkmate on Genji accesses the high ground and things like that. So it was some very clever, sort of simple things that stood out to me. It's like Hydro's positioning and how they use the damage players.
For sure. And before we even, I guess, even get into the bracket, I mean, let's just kind of take a look back at the week. The week that was, as they say, starting, we'll kind of jump into APAC first, starting with Seoul Dynasty kind of waking up a little bit this weekend.
Smurf Winston.
Smurf.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Smurf.
Yeah, he
do what you do best.
He played some Zarya, but he was predominantly his Winston.
Nothing.
A little bit of Reinhardt, I believe.
Yeah, we saw a little bit of Reinhardt in APAC.
Yeah, control center, Li Zhang.
God, it does exist.
Yeah, Reinhardt can play in
APAC. Reinhardt had an interesting weekend overall, and we'll get into that a little bit especially on the NA side of things, especially that last day. But Seoul kind of finally waking up, maybe punching up a little bit to their potential. And APAC again continues, no offense to NA, to be the far more interesting region to me. with
Yeah.
some of these results and stuff like that. Richard, and any takeaways from you this weekend?
Well, the biggest thing was Philly is looking a little bit
Philly's dropped. All
inconsistent.
right, we have to come up with another word, by the way. Everybody says dropping the spaghetti. That's like the meme in the. We're not doing that.
What does Philly have to do with spaghetti?
Nothing, but that's just the typical thing. Like, oh shoot, they screwed up. Like they were doing well, they dropped the ball, right?
Something that Avril came up with last year, I believe.
Yeah, it's the Overwatch League version of drops the ball. But I'm so sick of hearing drop the spaghetti. We need another term for when a team like it's going good and then spill. Like I used to say, pee in the cereal. It's so disgusting. It's so awful.
I mean, how would you even come up with that? Pee in the cereal, Matt. What
I've never heard
what
that
did you
one.
do?
I come from the world of pro wrestling.
Yeah, I know. This is true.
Oh my God.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to think about that one.
Whatever.
We'll have to come back to that next week.
Yeah, because there's no ball to drop, right? I think that makes a lot of sense. There's no ball to drop. I mean, it's a virtual ball, but
they C9'd their season. Like they C9'd. I guess,
it was weird. No.
Philly, Philly dropped the ball.
Yeah, they looked really freaky, but I think actually the biggest thing was Seoul looked a lot more composed when they played again. Like me, I'll speak more broadly in terms of like movement and structure, but they felt more composed overall. And I was like, okay, this is what we're expecting. And do you remember how we said like it's going to take a little bit of time for teams to find their flow, and they're going to have to do it in real time. They can't even practice independently outside of scrims with this game.
Yes.
And we're starting to see that ramp up, and that's where I thought it was actually pretty wild. For me, though, it was less Philly doing poorly. I mean, they were a bit weird, but I thought Seoul was good, and they didn't waste any time. We saw a little bit of strangeness, like when we saw like the SF Titans game, but I also think the Titans weren't as bad in that case as I thought they would have been. Like they actually played better outside of that one map where they were just all over the place. But Seoul is looking quite strong.
Wait, did you just say the SF Titans, the San Francisco Titans?
No. Shock did better than Titans did better than I thought they would against.
Okay.
Yeah,
against Shock.
That's what you mean.
You were saying the game, the SF
yeah, in the
Titans.
game. Yeah. But
that's my brain.
But like I said, I think Philly, they just looked burnt the cheesecake is what Chesto Cave said. They've burnt. I think we should find specific phrases for each team for when they quote unquote drop the ball.
Oh, okay. I can
like
see that.
burnt the cheesecake, drop the cheesesteak. Something like burnt the cheesesteak.
Burnt the cheesesteak.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
I will say this. Yes. As I said, Seoul looked a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
Creative. I've always said was a very stable player, and it's showing. Like, I think he's keeping the healing going. It's like, okay, you guys do your thing. I'll just keep you guys alive, and he's just really coming to his own.
Oh yeah,
but and I think another thing we need to actually discuss a little bit here is Guangzhou Charge.
Yeah, what's going on with these lads? This is, everyone was craps all over the Valiant, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. But they're hands down, they're the Vancouver Titans of APAC, hands down, bottom of the barrel. But what's going on there?
I'll say, because one thing I've noticed is first of all, Rio, who's been with that org for the longest, I believe, he has just sort of gotten weaker and weaker in terms of his sort of power. It's like he spiked when he first joined the team, has been going down ever since. And it's just this weird thing where you feel like they don't have that sort of solidness. I can't remember the exact words. They're not as solid. And then they look better with Krong in. Their off-tank player. I think he's a better idea. But even then, Choi Se-won's been looking good. I'll say that.
Yeah, Choi, like they had moments.
Yeah,
Far Away has his moments.
Yeah,
but there's not enough moments.
Yeah, I said this about season 1 Florida Mayhem. They're 7-33 roster. Richard might be able to back me up on this. It's like there wasn't enough to get them over the line. So
correct. Yep. I agree.
There, they make the plays. We always obviously, Richard, you probably remember Sire play taking people's heads off left, right, center.
Oh yeah. Who couldn't?
And it's just a case of they just didn't have enough to get over the line. And then another thing about Charge, which really drives me nuts, it's if they're waiting too much. It's like
not
they're
being
waiting
aggressive enough.
Well, not essentially that. It's like there's when you see a team counterattack, it's like you go in and then we'll react accordingly. With the charge, it's almost like they want to go in, but it's like they're waiting this extra 5 seconds just to get one ultimate online that they quote unquote might need. And in that 5 seconds, their opponents have already done what they wanted to.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like hesitance to commit to the brawl at times. But I think it just feels like they're not comfortable at times with the game, with the style yet. I think there's potential for them, right? Because they do have those moments. And then look, I mean, I know that's a little bit cliche because that is what wins and loses games.
Yeah, right. Like, we all have potential.
You know, they all have potential,
and
they all have moments.
Yeah.
I just want to see like you know what it is? They don't have a system yet that they can defer to where they just kind of go. It makes me wonder if they're like trying to actually communicate the plays while they're doing them versus like having them more structured and rote in terms of their behavior, in terms of their response. Like they know how to play off each other within certain environments, right? And again, it's one of those cases where I just chalk everything up to the fact that players don't have enough. They are underexposed to their own game right now.
True.
And I feel like what we see at Guangzhou is that they're just not there yet. Although I am happy that more people are pronouncing Guangzhou properly, because remember there were like people kept saying like Guangzhou. I can't remember who it was.
I've always
like,
known
how do you say that? What was one of the casters last year kept saying like Guangzhou? I'm like, seriously, it's not like I say London Spitfire. How? Come on!
If you cover the region, you better learn to.
I know, and these sounds exist in English. So come on.
Yeah,
you know.
Absolutely.
What I think really sucks about Guangzhou, they've got Eileen on the bench.
Yeah,
he's a
I know.
really talented hit scan. So I'd say start him every once in a while because he can play the Widowmaker. He's got the Trace of Sombra as well. So I'd say run him out for a bit.
I think Richard makes a really good point about things like they don't have a system yet, or even we were talking about a little bit privately, you know, and I even put this out on Twitter. I was like, the idea that we talked about how much more, you know, with less shields and more individual impact with less players is what, you know, quote unquote, and I've kind of evolved this since then. I said quote unquote, is one tricking more viable, both in character and in meta and in team comp. And I think
London.
I think it kind of but London is a great example of why. And I think the teams, even if it's not ideal long term, some of the teams who at least find hey, here's our strong suit. It may not be quote unquote meta with, you know, whatever, but if we play this really freaking well, it actually has the ability to punch through.
Yeah.
And teams who are finding that a little bit are having more success. Whereas teams like Guangzhou, they haven't even found their strength yet.
I mean, one thing I've always believed in is playing to the strengths of what you have. It's like, yes, this may be your meta, but if you're not good at the meta, why not find something different? I mean, I think if Guangzhou went down that route, they might be able to stumble across something.
Yeah, some people are too locked into, what's everybody else playing? We need to either mirror it or whatever.
That's the term I've heard.
Yeah. What is it?
Meta slaves.
Meta slaves. Oh, God.
Yeah, that's the term
that sounds way out of context. That's way different.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you have to remember that London, their coach now is Christopher, who for years was on Philadelphia Fusion. So the fact he's getting them playing that well is actually a testament to his coaching.
Yeah, no, and you're good at what you're good at, and you know what? With that, I'm gonna we'll get back to the brackets, but while we're on the subject, right? Like everybody was kind of like, and occasionally, you know, again, London's gonna break out the brawl. They're pretty much the only ones thrown around, and then we saw Houston mirror it. We saw Atlanta try to mirror it. We saw it busted out in APAC. So, I mean, are we seeing a little resurgence of Rhine, or is this still just people figuring out the meta, and figuring out what works?
To me, the Rhine comp feels like an anti-meta comp. It's like, looking at when they used it against Atlanta, and they used it to shut down Hawk, who at the time was on the Doomfist. I mean, obviously there's a whole Gator scenario where he decided to take the ego duel, but overall, it was clear that they were using that composition to shut down Hawk. And obviously, subsequently, LA Gladiators did the exact same thing. So it doesn't feel like it's going to be a meta comp to me. It feels more like an anti-meta comp.
Yeah, I think it is a lot of responsiveness as well too, which is again always good to see. It's one of those cases where when in doubt, mirror can be pretty safe when you see it. But I am curious to see where it'll go. I still feel like, given the nature of play, I don't feel like Ryan is really great on the meta yet. But again, this is Overwatch. It's like one patch and everything's gonna get bizarre.
Of course. Next stage is gonna be wild.
I'd say next patch.
Yeah, but I think as a mirror option, look, it's a 5v5 and there's only one tank. If you're not sure what to do, your safest bet is to mirror, and at least you're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. Because you just duplicate what it is that you're seeing your opponent do. Worst case scenario, from a strat perspective, that's what you would do.
Right.
So long as said tank can handle Ryan. And I think most of them can reasonably handle Ryan. It's not like when we first saw Winston, and a lot of people are just not good with Winston and his electric tickler. It's just, it's weird. It's weird to get used to him for the first time, right? Whereas Ryan is like, I think everybody has handled Ryan. If you're in any tank role, you've handled Ryan.
True. Probably one of the more firm and like I guess perennial like main tank picks and just kind of pseudo meta picks or whatever. I think is one of those. So I think it is one of those comps and choices that most teams are you seeing. Although one thing we've seen a lot of, which I'll be very curious to see in the kickoff clash, especially in NA, because I just think it's gotten more use, is a big counter to Rhine has been Doomfist. Doomfist actually counters Rhine pretty well. I'm not going to say 9 times out of 10, but a lot of the time.
I think that's fair.
But for now, we will talk about, and we'll kind of move into it. It finally happened, ladies and gentlemen. It came home, and it was on Saturday. London versus Atlanta. Did you watch the game, Richard?
I actually didn't.
You missed this? Oh my!
I did.
God.
That was one of the games. It was a really busy weekend. And I'm like, okay, I had to pick and choose, and that was one where I was like, what's the worst thing that I'm gonna miss? And I feel like I missed a lot, and I feel like watching the highlights did not make up for that.
No, man, it was the start of a rough weekend for Atlanta. London has been down there with, again, punching up a little bit down there with Vancouver, though, at the bottom of the NA barrel. And the as we mentioned briefly before, and here, let me find it first. The Gator did from the Atlanta Reign did there it is. Here's the infamous tweet, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's see it.
Want to square up in the honorable Rhine rush mirror. And sure enough, Adi says, oh, hell yeah.
And look what happened.
They got diffed. It was a good game. It was close. It was 3-2, but they got diffed. And with extreme prejudice.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch the full game, not the highlights. I feel like I gotta watch the entire
it's good
game to prep up. But that's what you get, right, for making these bold declarations. I'm like, it's like when Lisa Simpson was trying to tell Homer, helping him with his betting on football. It's like, didn't you hear the fear in his voice? His lack of confidence. I always think it's funny though, right? It happens, man. Don't be the person to make big statements and then get your butt kicked. It happens.
And I like to put it came home because this was the matchup last year. Yes, last year. I don't remember what stage it was, but it was Atlanta versus Atlanta. Atlanta was kind of starting or was already on their roll, and it was right before. What was the big football? It was the European Cup or something. It was the World Cup
of European Championships, I believe.
Okay,
it was delayed from 2020. So
yes,
I want to say it was the European Championships. But
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
I think you're right because I remember people talk, and it was at the end of that match that right at the end, right when they capped and Atlanta won, Gator typed in chat, "It's not coming home." To the Londonites, and people erupted, and a lot of people just thought it was good banter, which I do agree. It was kind of capitalizing on a meme. A lot of people were all upset about it, but so to me, I just thought it was kind of poetic justice that this is London's first win of the season. Yes,
second, I believe.
Who did they beat before? Did they
I'm
beat New York?
No,
or Vancouver?
I don't remember off the head.
It was probably either Vancouver or New York.
Keep the discussion going. I'll look it up.
Okay, but still, I mean, against Atlanta, who again, some people had originally number one in their power rankings preseason and have kept them relatively high. I just thought it was kind of a fun full circle moment for London, and cheers, have some fish and chips, lads. You earned that one. I'm curious to see. I mean, obviously, London doesn't make the kickoff clash, unfortunately. And speaking of which, it was Vancouver, I think.
Yeah, I've got it up on my screen now. It's Vancouver.
Okay.
So double check if there's any others as well.
Still, second win of the season. It's a big one.
They also beat Boston Uprising.
Oh, that's right. They did beat. So, man, they're, like I said, this is where. Yeah. Wow. London punch-up season?
There's so much Overwatch this season.
London calling? Oh, I know already, right? Especially we've had to make up for APAC. So they've had like Thursday games and everything like that to get all on sync for this coming up tournament. But I mean, let's get into the tournament. In fact, actually, I'm going to go ahead and let's look at APAC first because it's a little bit more condensed.
Spark.
So Spark, which we again we'll talk about it now because there's no point in not talking about it, but that'll be we won't have a quote unquote match of the week this week because there's a bunch of tournament spots to fill up as this progresses. So we're going to pick our winners and you'll see our full things. But I think, man, out of the 4 APAC teams that have qualified, I think Spark have had the most consistent start to their season.
They're vicious,
is that
man.
crazy?
Dude, they're so aggressive. Like, I love how they hunt you down and shoot you like it's like, like boy tries to run out back alley and you shoot him in the back. Like Spark are bloodthirsty. I love that. It's like their finger guns are real guns and they just want to hurt you and destroy your family and like generations to come. No, I really like the way they play. They play a really aggressive style, which I think is like is great because I've always hated their name and their branding and the entire anime weeb thing. Like it just used to drive me crazy. They're like, oh, they wear pink. I'm like, whatever, pink and black is.
And is the logo finger guns?
Yeah, it's finger guns.
Yeah, it's an anime reference of some sort. I can't remember exactly.
Certain scientific railgun. It basically.
Isn't one of their owners an anime company? So
I mean, they're all like into broadcast ownership stuff like that without going into too much detail. But I will say though, their play style's exciting. Right, it is such a good look for the league, and it's the style that I love about Overwatch. There's precision, there's a bit of aggression, but they finish so well, and their collapse is so clean, and they're consistent, and it's really really cool. And that's actually one of the reasons why I like how Soul's playing because they're starting to get that like finish, and you get that kind of movement, and the collapse is so clean, and I really dig that about those two teams right now. Whereas everyone else is like, sorry, go ahead, Plex. But
you're with the Spark, I mentioned last week how they play with no fear because of all the rookies, and it is very clear in how they play. It's like Alpha Yi impressed me a lot.
Yeah, dude, he is popping the hell off.
Like, everyone goes about Shy. I think Alpha Yi's on for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
And then you've also got Super Rich and who's I'm trying to remember the name of his support partners. So you got Super Rich on main support. It's gonna bug me now.
You'll
help.
But still, they've been having these consistently. They're popping off at all the right times, and I think the question is, do they run through this tournament? You know what I mean? Do they meet? Dragons have been inconsistent, but I feel like this weekend kind of refound their footing, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
So they have all the potential in the world. And again, so that actually, to be fair, that second game is going to be more interesting. I think Spark is going to whoop up on Fusion unless they can pull out that week 1 Fusion. And
even then, I think they'd still have difficulty against the way Hangzhou is playing right now.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah, let's say the support partner is Irony, just
Yeah.
for the record. Yeah, I mean, with the double elimination bracket, anything's possible. So, for all we know, Fusion could win the first game, and then Spark go on the salty run back,
Mhm.
and then the Dragons
Yeah.
sweep the winners bracket. We just don't know.
Yeah.
Anything could happen. I think realistically, that first match is going to be depending on which Fusion turn up. And keep in mind, they've only just played each other as well.
Mhm.
Can we
really
can
close
we make an argument that and maybe this is bold, that Philly Fusion are the Washington Justice of APAC?
You just don't know which one you're going to get. Yeah.
Like really hot and cold.
Yeah. I mean, I can see what
Yeah,
they're trying
that's
to
fair.
do.
Is that fair? I don't know if it's that bad, but it's like they seem to like just walk through week 1. It's like, oh, shaking our stuff out there, kicking up big shopping bags, walking down the street like they just want to spree at Macy's.
If we're taking that comparison, Fusion have a little bit of leeway because they're predominantly rookies, whereas you look at Washington, they've got a lot of veteran presence.
Yeah,
and you think so they should be doing better. I mean, even Krillin has league experience on London Spitfire.
Yeah.
So you'd think they'd be doing better with that amount of talent on their roster.
Mm-hmm.
But at least with Fusion, I mean, they've been looking really good, even in defeats. I'll say that much.
Yep.
Yeah. As we often say, the scoreline doesn't always reflect how close some of the maps are.
Yeah.
That's fair. If they show up, you could be right, man. They can move through the if week 1 Philly shows up.
Yeah, like I mean, MN3 was such a beast, right? To start, it was like and
stuff.
Yeah, and you know what? Yeah, which one are we gonna get? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that it's also that remember, as time goes on, the other teams are sort of powering up, they're catching up, and like Philly had they landed so well to start that they had a great look, they were structuring well, and other teams were kind of figuring things out. Like, I mean, Seoul looked really weird and when they opened, right? I was like, oh, I mean, what's going on here? But I just think I don't think they can beat Hangzhou. I mean, Hangzhou, think about it. You got like cheesesteaks and some pretty awful food up against like the greatest tea plantations.
We're not doing this
in the
anymore.
world.
We're not doing this. No,
Hangzhou
we're not
is
doing
so
this
good.
anymore. No, Richard.
No.
They're powered by tea.
We're not talking about the food. They're all lovely cities in their own way, and they're all terrible cities in their own way.
Well,
we're talking about the players on the damn roster.
They do have great Beaux-Art architecture. It's a very French-inspired city. Never
all
forget.
right, mate. All right.
Then they're the number 18 million seed. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. No, but no, but I think Dynasty will come on. I mean, personally, I think it's going to be Spark and Dynasty somewhere, like getting to the end.
That has that happened yet? By the way,
well, I mean, it's weird because I'm assuming Dynasty's going to like botch it against the Dragons, and then they'll come back. That's how it's going to happen.
We'll just shoot ourselves with this foot right here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there seems to just be. That's what I mean by like APAC is like. This is. I feel like there's a lot more volatility and like even though I think Spark has been the most consistent, I still have that weird little like itchy feeling that I'm like they could just crumble, which I don't like feeling, but it's like what I will say about this region is that depending on, like we've said, who shows up, I think the final could be any two of these four, like, and it wouldn't totally shock me. There's no way they're not making. There's no way the X team is making it to the end.
So just saying that Super Black Eye are the most accurate predictive model that exists in Overwatch League is saying that it's going to be Spark versus Dragons, that we must mark his words.
Well, we'll mark his words right here, just so he can't deny it again.
He was bang on, right, with that Glad's 3-0.
Yeah, I will say one thing about APAC, sort of piggybacking off what Matt said, is like a lot of the teams feel like they're on the same level for different reasons.
Yeah,
so you got Spark with their aggressive playstyle, no fear. You got the Dragons with their quality. You got Dynasty coming through it. So like everyone's got the reason to be on that level. Whereas you look at NA, it's very clear who is where a lot of the time.
Well, let's do that. Let's take a look at
Yeah.
NA. We kind of started here, but we'll go back here. Obviously, our top 4 seeded teams ended up being the Shock, the Fuel, the Los Angeles Gladiators, and the Florida Mayhem in their tops, and they all got to select their opponents. So, Shock, being the number 1 seed, got to select first.
Yeah,
And,
Mayhem, for the record, didn't get to pick.
Right, so they were left with the scraps.
The reheated leftovers that are the Atlanta
They
Rain.
are the Atlanta Rain. But Shock got to pick first, and we were just talking about it. The Justice. I mean, is this is this a case of which Justice shows up,
It's hard to tell. I mean,
or is this clear cut to you?
on paper, given their run, Shock should walk this.
Yeah.
But it's all going to come down to whether or not they can shut down the DPS line, in my opinion. Because that's what Mayhem did in their match recently. They made sure that Decay never got into the action. Like, you saw, the best way to put it is in professional football, like what I would call football, you guys call soccer.
Of course.
Yeah, because you're weird.
Because we're
Major League Soccer.
Yeah.
Because we just have to. Yeah.
It's like a lot of the time, there's a term called man marking, where you'll have one player marking another player. There's
Excuse
also
you? Man marking? Don't man mark me.
Only
we're gonna
your
mark you
twisted
so
mind,
good.
so-
I
gonna
deal
mark
with
you
enough
so
man
good.
marks in my other line of work. So,
So anyway,
Wait,
like, what I mean
the
by that is that-
daytime or the nighttime one?
oh,
what I mean
Yeah.
by that is that Checkmate was essentially keeping Decay under wraps. It's like
Yeah.
wherever Decay went, Checkmate went.
Yep.
And at times you saw him going, right, he's over here. And then the team just collapses on him. Like, he basically did get to play the game. And they did a similar thing with Happy as well. So, Justice, for me, if Decay is having a good game, they are scary. If Decay is kept quiet, they're not going to work. Because I said before how they're so all in on Decay, they've got no plan B. Whereas with a team like the Florida Mayhem, you look at them, if, say, Majed's not having a good game, then Hydron can pick up the slack. It's like everyone can play their part. It's almost like the best way to describe it is that episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when Will joins the basketball team and they base their strategy on passing it to Will.
Yep.
That's Justice. It's a case of if they can't get the ball to Will.
You're relying on the deadlift of one DPS player.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean yet. I mean, Decay and Happy as a pair should, on a given day, pound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it doesn't seem to have the synergy with everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, there's always, I've said before, there's that disconnect between when they attack, the supports are left like sitting ducks.
Yeah, you mentioned that before, right? In the way they're played,
Yeah.
there's like too much of a little bit too far, right? You leave them a little bit too exposed.
Yeah. And as I said off the top, we saw Hydron with the supports at all times.
Yeah.
Rather than going off on his own. And it worked. It helped defend them.
Yes.
Whereas with Justice, the second someone Checkmate were in there and they didn't have the sleep dart, it was like, back to the spawn queue you go.
Well, right after that, the Dallas Fuel, the number 2 seed, got to choose their opponent, which many people thought that the Shock would choose, because many people out of the top 8 to qualify for the kickoff clash would argue that the opponent that the Dallas Fuel chose was, sorry, Richard, the weakest of the top 8 teams in the Toronto Defiant. So a lot of people were surprised that the Shock didn't pick the Defiant. Why do we think, in that example, why do we think Shock might have picked Justice instead of Defiant, who was arguably at the kind of bottom of this top 8?
I wasn't actually sure. I was convinced Shock was going to choose Toronto.
Yeah,
a lot of people
really
were.
was.
I think
And then
everybody
like,
was.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, okay, Justice. Well, I mean, that means Dallas is going to choose him, obviously, because it's like, one, they 3-0'd, but then that was also like, yeah, it's easy. I have no idea. The only thing I could imagine is they're worried about what like maximum streak potential would be, but I actually have no idea.
Yeah. I think using my example of all in on one player, I mean, the Defiant, they're not reliant on one player. They've spread the workload. Like,
yeah,
Isu, Finale, Although every player can carry the weight. So I think that's probably why they didn't go with Defiant. They went with Justice. Because with Justice, you literally have to shut down one player and you're good to go.
Yeah.
So that could be a factor, in my opinion.
Gotcha. So I mean,
we are a bit better too. Like Toronto, one could argue like your supports are a little bit more self-sustaining when needed. Like we've seen like Choron go totally nuts. We've seen Twilight go totally nuts.
Yes.
And that can be one of those things that if they're just on fire one day, it's a bit frustrating. It's a bit tiring. Plus, then you don't have to play them right away. Right? Because it's one of those cases where you've got it's a tournament, it's a knockout. You got to start to think about how long these games are going to go for. You know, it's funny now that you mention it, Plex. Yeah, the idea of shutting down one player, you might as well play that team first. You just conserve energy. You conserve mental fortitude and focus because they don't have focus by Advanced GG.
Oh! We actually
not sponsored yet.
Normally I shill on my personal stream. I didn't expect to shill that hard on the old podcast, but good call, Richard.
Yeah, but that's my only theory, though. Honestly, it's that go with a team you can shut down faster. Get out of that first round fast. Rest. Yeah. Because there's a lot of games.
That's something people. I mean, even in esports, like you have to remember, like this is not just a regular weekend or like over the course of a week. This is over the course of 2 days, where sometimes you may play 3, 4, 5 times.
It's a lot
in the span of 2-3 days, which is just mentally exhausting when you have to be that locked in and trying to play at your absolute peak. It is, that's a very, very good point.
Yeah.
Next was the Los Angeles Gladiators, who clinched their number 3 seed, and we weren't sure. They had just prior. They were our match of the week from last week. It was Gladiators and Reign, and they whooped up on the Atlanta Reign.
Glad's look great.
Straight up, like they're finally. They had a couple of. They got reverse sweeped twice, or reverse swept. Excuse my English. They got reverse swept twice. I mean, to be fair, it was by 2 of the top teams. So but still, that's a shaky scenario. And they came back and they absolutely stomped the Atlanta Reign, including, did you guys see the Space Rock?
Yes, I did.
On Circuit Royale.
The predictive rock right at the end, yeah.
There had to be. Here's the thing. So I'm like, oh, it had to be one of those moments where it's like, you're looking for something else and you get a lucky, pick. But you look back at the VOD, he's looking at a crowd, he's looking at other players, he turns to the empty spot, fires it up, launches it, and then bam, who did he catch? Was it
Venom, I thought.
Was it Venom? Yeah. Or was it Kai?
Yeah. I think
it was Venom because Kai, I think, was playing the Widow.
Yeah, because I will say this about that map. Why did you play Tracer?
Tracer's always viable. If played well, is always viable. But on that map in particular, it's more of the long, especially those opening points.
You need the echo, really. Yeah. Venom, really talented Tracer, but you could tell he couldn't play anything else. As soon as he switched to Hanzo, you could tell it was basically a 4v5 a lot of the time, not because Venom was in the respawn queue, but because he's almost like a ghost.
Yep.
And then you saw Gladiators playing the double sniper comp with Arntz basically clicking heads left and right.
Yep.
And Kevster with a sonic arrow keeping everyone.
Yeah, the Hanzo making an appearance. We haven't seen a whole ton of Hanzo. Kevster busted out the Hanzo. Also, I think in that series busted out Cassidy.
Yeah.
When they went full on brawl on King's
old
Row.
School brawl.
Yeah. Which it worked. I was like, this is gonna be a weird one. Like they're gonna get kind of shut down here, and then they won.
Yeah.
So it was it's they're waking up to the potential. It was great to see Space. I know like the chat gets spammed with cowards put in space. I know he's like for a long time he was kind of like their face of the league, but Reiner, man, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And he's kicking ass as well. But they
call you coward up until you lose, and then they just go toxic as hell. So just win. The point is to win.
Are you talking about Atlanta? Or are you talking about Clash?
Yeah, in general, like whenever you see that, I always chuckle. I'm like, if they were losing and they don't make a change, that's different. But if you're winning, win. why
Don't
change
fix it's
anything?
not broken.
Yeah.
Exactly. Don't fix it. Ain't broke.
Damn right. And I feel like a lot of stuff's gonna get a little broke after the new patch gets put in
Yeah.
after the next thing. But Glad selected Outlaws. A lot of people thought they would select the Rain because like, oh, we just stomped up on them 3-0. Let's just face them first. But no, they chose my friends, the Houston Outlaws. In what I think will be a little bit, and of course, I can't tell. By the way, if did you guys watch the selection at all?
I watched it. Yeah.
Yep.
I think they need a little bit like some of the trash talk is not bad, but
Yeah.
like I feel you can feel the lack of like commitment behind it.
Yeah. I mean,
You know what I mean? It's like
it's not like Dogman in
I feel like
2020.
we can whoop up on them. Ha ha ha. It's
I'm
like,
saying-
come on, man. Say
I'd
it with
say-
your chest. Say it with your whole body.
I liked how was it the fellow from the shock? He's like, I just got woken up and told to get on the camera.
Oh, it was Sam, right?
It was Sam, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It was. I love the honesty.
Because I don't think he played.
Sparkle was
or-
funny to
yeah.
watch as well. Like,
Oh, yeah,
he's
Sparkle
saying,
was
he's saying,
funny.
he's saying.
you're waiting for the
Sparkle sang.
translation.
Sparkle sang.
Yeah, no.
It's
I
like-
actually think esports trash talk is pretty like it's pretty weak. It also doesn't help that you can't make it up if there's no legitimate reason to dislike and like these are just generic brand name teams that and all
Yeah.
these like their relationships with the players. There's no loyalty to the team. There's no loyalty to the org. There's nothing to dislike. There's no derby. There's no battle of the province. It's just like people trying to try to sound like what
Edgy.
they think trash talk is, but they're not
Yeah.
good at it because they're hanging out on computers all day long. Like you want real trash talk, you got to go and actually talk, which nobody does.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like-
All they'll do is say people are, pardon the language, like you're dog shit, blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, real original, buddy.
yeah.
Way to go. No,
And I
honestly, I think esports trash talk's really weak because
Yeah, I
it
think
either doesn't go far enough or goes way too far. I'm like, that is not how you
Yeah.
trash
So
talk.
you just
Yeah.
tweet something
You're-
horrendously
That's
offensive.
just horrendously offensive. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
I think also the fact that you notice who they put up. A lot of the people were very humble. Like,
Yeah,
Jake, who's now a coach for the Houston Outlaws. He's one of the most humble people I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But
you
like,
don't-
but at the same time, I don't know if they're giving you an opportunity, like your camera to camera and stuff like that.
Well,
and the whole,
I think Sparkle and Hotba were a good example of how it works, but also
yeah.
and Korean players are better at it because they take it more seriously and it is deeper. There are rivalries in traditional esports in APAC, and they're also better media trained because as a role, it's generally more visible. Like
Mhm.
esports coverage is more common,
Yeah.
The StarCraft channel's been there forever. You know what I mean? So it's one of those cases where they take the responsibility a little bit more seriously. They'll make more common statements because there's more money on the line and more reputation. It's a thing.
Mm.
Whereas it's like when you take into like an NA or like an NA context, especially, it's like you get to meme and make these jokes because no one ever sees it. No one really
Yeah.
cares.
Yep.
It's disposable. But I think this is one of those cases where it's like there's also not enough legacy that's built into any of these orgs, so you can't even go after it because how many of them have
Yeah.
completely churned their entire operational staff since they started in the league, regardless of who
Right.
they are. Right?
Right.
Very
So-
few of them have kept it solid, and the ones that have know how to poke at people. I think they're the ones who are better at this.
For sure.
Right.
And then and we talked about it a little bit, and then finally Mayhem got left with Atlanta Reign. So we got a little bit of that that East Coast, Southeast Coast, whatever,
Yeah.
the rivalry going there.
Mhm.
And the last time they met earlier in the season, it was Atlanta who did beat
Mm.
them with the infamous Roadhog pick. A cough Plex.
Thank you.
But they've found themselves. They
Yeah.
found their footing very, very well since then. So here's my question, because we're gonna get into like predictions and who we think are gonna make it to the finals at the end as we send off our predictions. But out of these teams, and it's a bit more interesting on this one because we have 8 teams. Here's my question: who has the best lower bracket run? Who gets knocked down early but has a run on the lower bracket? In your opinion?
I would say the Outlaws, because assuming, let's say, the top 4 teams, so your Shock, Mayhem, Fuel, and Glads, all get past their first round opponents.
Mhm.
Outlaws seem to have have the ability to get through, because we all joke about the Dante Doomfist and all the rest of it, but they're successful at it.
It's another example of that. Like, I'm like, again, in this version, can hard focusing a comp, can it work? And I feel like not always, and maybe not long term for the whole, but I'm like, there seems to be more of an ability to force something through if you're really talented at it, and overcome odds and overcome metas.
Make sort of micro adjustments, like we've seen in Pelican flex between the Genji and the Echo and the Tracer. So we got that as a contingency plan as well. And I think realistically, overall, they've started to understand what counters them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's also going to be a factor. Like, they could make these mini adaptations.
True. And we have seen Piggy coming in more, who is their more traditional tank player for Houston. And even to call back to what we're talking, even brought out another honorable Rhine mirror on Circuit Royale of all places against London. And it's weird. It's like they won. That was a weird scenario because like they won the map. And I even messaged the team manager. I was like, were you guys terrified when Piggy like busted up the Rhine against Hottie? They're like, we were all scared for a couple of minutes. But like, and I think Hottie probably got the better of him, Rhine v Rhine. But the team obviously
the team quality came through.
So okay, Lex thinks Outlaws have the most likely of a good lower bracket run. Plex does. Richard, what about you?
Oh, Toronto, because I'm completely biased.
Why did I even need to ask?
No, Toronto's gonna have
take the bias out of the equation, sir.
I actually think they could do pretty well. Honestly, like quite frankly,
sure.
I think it's funny because everyone wants to tag them with this. There's drama around the team and this and that, and speculate this and hypothesize that. But the team's looking pretty good, overall. Like, look, they're gonna get out muscled by a lot of folks. But look, assuming they lose to let's just assume they got to play, so they get knocked out, right? So they go down first.
Yep.
They'd be playing Outlaws, right? Because I'm assuming Glads are going to beat Outlaws. Is that how the bracket's set up?
I would never assume anything, but no. So it's Fuel Defiant, Glads, Outlaws.
Yeah, so they'd probably be playing Outlaws lower bracket, and I think they can pull off that win.
They've done it before, right?
Well, and the thing is too, it's that you've got the benefit of like learning styles as well too. I think Muse has a ton of potential. Oh, hey, there you go. Like Bert actually posted this too. I think Muse has like a ton of potential. We've seen a lot of stability there as well too. We've seen use of their bench. We've seen them flex a little bit more, and I think they've actually picked up some momentum. I think I want to see what happens with Muse, because there's so much. Now it's not about you just have to shut him down, but again, it's one of those cases, and we've also seen like specifically like Choron can really, really, really beat the crap out of folks. I just hope people get his name right, because I did hear one of the casters call him Krong in one of the games, so I did think that was funny.
Nope, totally different player.
I know.
It's Charong, isn't it?
Yeah. Different position, different player, different team,
different everything.
No, but honestly, I actually think they could have a pretty good run. Never forget, like Toronto is one of those teams where organizationally, right, we're never supposed to be there. We were never supposed to be there when the team started. Yet we made it to the playoffs, and we got booted up by Atlanta in that first round, but we were built off of the back of Stellar, running Brig. And everyone's like, who the hell's Stellar? I'm like, that's the problem, you guys. You're looking at the game all wrong. He got more fantasy points as a Brig player for anyone who chose him than pretty much anybody else in the league, right? So it's one of those cases where Toronto's got nothing to lose as an organization. You're never supposed to be there. You're like a Canadian team that, whatever. It's like you're not really much. And I've always thought that that's one of those things that can help, as long as they can just keep their system going, just like don't panic. Like that's one of the things, like have those weird, don't pull a Kellen where you do weird panicky stuff, like on Excelsior. But honestly, I really do think they could actually do quite well. But how far it goes, I mean, who knows? Because in the end, you're going to be up against a team like Shock or Fuel somewhere in the finals, and they're going to just out and muscle you in the end, right? But I think when you look at the lower half, look, you got to look at the map differentials, right? There's basically 2 splits. You got the top 2 teams, and then everybody else.
Yeah, the
right?
top 2 have
Like,
pulled away pretty.
Yeah,
and look at the
Chelsea
map
everyone else.
diffs. Like, they lose games, but the map diffs are actually better for Toronto than they are for Justice. So it's like you got to sort of like think it through that they can pull this off. They just pull them off in the wrong order. So like I said, it's like baseball stats. People are looking at things wrong, right? Your ERA doesn't matter, right? A batting average doesn't matter. Right? It matters what happens in the scenarios in which those things happen. And Toronto's actually they've got the material. It's just happening in the wrong combinations, which is why the map wins aren't occurring.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
I can see that.
Yeah. But really, it's like you look at the map diffs and they're actually in a pretty decent spot. So, and they've been getting better. So that's where I'd like to see again, like, yeah. Plus, I'm also completely biased. There's also
of
that.
course. And we
like-
expected nothing less.
Right. And I think Justice could actually surprise us too. Like, it's one of those cases where if
it's
they
like
get knocked
Mayhem
down.
and another one that
Yeah.
They
could.
Mayhem. One thing I've noticed with Gunbar is he sets his team up essentially for the match. He doesn't go, okay, we're going to hard practice for this team and then don't worry about the other one. He will have a set play for each team. Like we saw the checkmate Sombra against Houston Outlaws, for example, to try and shut down Dante.
I was going to say it was a counter to Doom because you haven't seen a lot of Sombra, but it's a good counter to Doomfist.
Yeah, and then again against Justice, they put Hydro with a support line. So shut down. It's subtle things that Gunbar is really good at. I've noticed as a coach.
And I'm curious to see, you kind of bring that up, and then it makes me, it's hard to tell. Nobody ever knows. I hear about this all the time, especially with esports coaching. It's like there seems to be 2 schools of thought. Is like, because a coach, some people will say like doesn't really have. It comes down to the players and who's the IGL and who's kind of doing, leading the team in game. And what does a coach really? I hear a lot of what does a coach do? And there are some who are just like straight up. Some coaches are they're kind of just rah, they're there for morale and just kind of keep everybody going, keep spirits up. Others are more strategically based. So this is another thing with Overwatch too, is that a coaching style going to be a little bit more impactful in these setups, like you said, picking lineups and everything to go against certain teams.
Yeah, I think it's also important to know. I mean, I've said this before. Gunbar spent part of last year coaching in Valorant. And you can see the Valorant-esque tendencies in this Mayhem squad and how they play the cover, where they take engagements. It's not like we're just going to dive in here and hope for the best. We're going to go, okay, we'll deliberately lose this fight to get a better fight further on the map. So there's a lot of
thought out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a lot of teams are literally just trying, with Shock. Their whole strategy is build ults as quickly as possible and use it to create the overload. So it's like if you see every team play the exact same composition, there's a time where you can tell the stylistic differences. It's something I've sort of picked up on over the years.
For sure. Absolutely. One thing I wanted to see real quick. So before we go on and move to our predictions, who we think are going to be in the finals of the Kickoff Clash, both regions, and select who we think is going to win. I want to touch briefly on it because a lot of people have talked about it. The little bit of the we mentioned it earlier, the quote unquote social media minefield. That they're gonna, and this calls back to the trash talk thing. And so to give a very, very, very brief overview, Gator from the Atlanta Reign, who is kind of one of their in-game leaders. And again, he's the guy who typed that "it's not coming home" last year. He likes to have some cheeky trash talk. He's the one we talked about earlier, wanted to square up to Hottie in the Rhine mirror. And then maybe even had said something else. And then kind of went on there was also the blacklisting thing that from London, who had kind of alleged that Atlanta had not forced them to not play each other in scrim blocks and things like that. So people kind of piled on Gator. And so now it kind of brings in this argument of, and Jake from the Outlaws who kind of stepped in, and there's a lot of people kind of from the industry chiming to say blocking people on social media is a perfectly normal response to trolling. Just like fans can hate if they want to, players can and should block it out. So because Gator started blocking some casters for making jokes, a bunch of people in the league and things like that. So I guess my kind of question is, where is the like? Because he brings up a good point. You know, of course, I think a lot of us feel like, yeah, if you're going to dish it out, you got to be able to take it.
Yeah.
But I would say for most of us, in a one-on-one scenario, we get that. Like, hey, if I'm going to talk crap to you, Plex, or you, Richard, I better expect a dig back at me. But does that mean should a player or somebody in the public eye have that idea of like, it's not just when I'm tweeting something out, when I'm saying something, it's not just a conversation, crap talk between me and another player. You have that there's thousands of people who might pile on you and call you and start really trolling you. So like, is this a case of don't dish it out if you can't take it? Or do we think someone like Gator is justified in kind of trying to put the block machine out in full force?
You know, I don't know. For me, I'm like, you can say whatever you want, and then, you know, if you block people later because you don't want to be a part of it, that's okay too. I mean, you're under no obligation. What are your media requirements here? You know what I mean? And the big mistake that a lot of these folks make is that these are not like standard media outlets. These are the handles that they use for everything else, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, in the end, it's like you have no obligation to have to play into this. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the desire for being seen or for whatever clout that people want, sure, it's fleeting. I don't know why people do it. It's so bloody ephemeral, but that's why they do it. This entire business model is built off of this. Is what esports largely is, but like, look how well it's actually going. Like, so what? So what if somebody chooses to block you? This is not like somebody who's in political office who has a legal requirement to have to listen to the opinions of people who've elected them. This is a pro player in a game. And it's not about that they're playing video games for a living. I always think it's so funny that people like are so dismissive and they try to say, well, this is just video games. I'm like, well, what the hell is like you play baseball for a living? Like, what the hell is that? Does that make it?
I agree with that. Like, no,
it's so stupid that
we're
people
so professionals. That's
but the point is, you have no like you're not there just so people can like beat the crap out of you. And if you don't want to be a part of that, that is also like literally not your job, right? Your job is to perform in game. Right? Whether it's on a court, on a rink, or an Overwatch. And if you choose to block people or casters, well, hey, quite frankly, if you're the caster and you're doing things that are getting yourself blocked, or like let's say you did something, you went out there, you're actually a voice. You're actually paid to be a media voice.
That's a fair point.
For a centralized league. You're the one committing the problem. You're supposed to be a caster, which means you're not on color commentary. Like if you're like Stephen A, you say whatever you want. It doesn't matter because that is your job in that context. And truth be told, I'm certain some people will be like, yeah, I'm going to block Stephen A because I think he's a douchebag. Sure, you can do that, right? But I think it's silly for people to be like, this is why I think it's so funny, right? Because in esports, everyone's like, we're transparent and we believe in this season. Like, one, you're not transparent.
No.
Like, no, you're not. Secondly, just because you're transparent doesn't mean you have to like leave yourself open to things. I think it's hilarious. I think it's laughable that we're literally like entering, like we're coming out of mental health month and everyone's like, well, you should be open to this. Don't block anybody. You can't handle it. And I'm like, how can you be saying that in the same time you're telling people it's okay to not
take care of your,
you got to take care of yourself, but not unless it's a form of our entertainment, like that you're a selfish prick if you do that. And that's when I see this and I'm like, I think you can do whatever you want because again, your job here is to play the game and to do it well and to focus on your team and be in the best position you can be to help your teammates and help your city and help your org and whatever it takes to get there. This is fine. And if all they're doing is ignoring the chirping, more power to them.
Yeah, sure. I mean, one thing I think should be said is that you don't know how someone's going to react to what you say. It's like I could say something to Matt as a joke, but he may not take it as a joke. He may find it offensive. And I think that's also another fact. It's like all these people piling on Gator, he may not appreciate that. It's like I've not read anything like that. I know the general idea of what's been going on. Because I will admit, here, open disclosure, I'm not the best at social media. Never have been, never will be. It's just a case of, I feel like it's a case of he's doing this to I'm just trying to think of the best way to put this. This is not him sort of running away from the problem. It's him trying to solve the problem from his perspective. Because, as I said, Ed, we may think it's a joke.
Yep.
He may not.
Right.
So
yeah. Well, you know, so Super Black Guy has a great comment. It's so funny. Because that's why I laughed. Sorry, I didn't mean to chuckle. I wasn't chuckling at what you were saying, Plex. I just happened to read the comment. But his comment was, esports are built on this look at the Call of Duty League, and their trash talk is wild, and including the team's Twitter joining in. But I feel like this is a great quote. But I feel like Owl Twitter is the Weenie Hut Juniors of esports trash talk, where we got to walk on eggshells on trash talk. You're so bang on this because this is sort of the reality, right? It's and speaking of what Bert is saying, goes, you should apply to be the SMM for Defiant. I can't because I think I told you folks before, when I was heading up Revival's creative, I had one rule, and my rule was no memes. Because I feel like this is an issue, right? It's that, and when Plex is talking about like not being good at social media, like that's a good thing, because you got to understand, if the only measure of success is that more people like it, it means definitionally everything you have to say has to be pop. It has to be the most easily digestible, simplified, popular opinion, right? Which means you can't actually do anything. You can only say what people want you to say. You're like Bart Simpson, say the thing, say the line. Say the line.
I mean, trend and meme. Trend and meme.
It's the opposite of content. All you're doing is basically giving up your brand and to basically be the most generic possible thing. And it's so bad.
It's like, also, I think Matt can attest this. Like, everyone remembers you for one thing, and people are so obsessed with that one thing. They were like, hey, do the thing, do the thing, do the thing. And yet you're trying to move on from that.
Well, so no, I think this is different, and I think what we're saying here in the sense of it's just the social media presence of all of these teams and everything is all just right. Instead of we call it creating content, but it's just what is the meme everybody's joking about?
But there's nothing
right
created.
No,
this is just reflection of what exists.
And there's
it would be as if everybody had the same finishing move because it was popular. Oh my god, the GTS looks cool. Now everybody do the GTS.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if that's how you handle wrestling or if, like, it's so lame. Like this is one of the only cultures where everyone is so desperate to be exactly the same as everybody else. You got to look the same, dress the same. You got to have the same backgrounds. You got to have the same look for your backdrops. And I'm like, you want to know why people have so many challenges? Like why so much youth or even older folks, think about it. All they want to do, they're so desperate to belong in their heterogeneous little sphere of isolated influence that they'll just do whatever the other people do, which is why it's so funny. It's why the world is so small and they never see how big something can get because they think they've made it because they're popular with their 1%. Of the population that's in their fandom. And I don't know, like I saw that little blip, and I was honestly, all I could think was, well, good for you, man. Nice one on you. I think in the end, why would we ever look, we're just telling people all the time. And again, this is one of those funny things, right? We're in the space where, like, it's really hard on these players and they take a lot of crap. And then you want to get upset because we don't get to have full access to them and they have to listen to what we have to say. Talk about self-centered, complete, like, misplaced belief and ownership of somebody else's existence in its entirety. Like I'm beholden, you're beholden to me. Get the F out of here. Like, get out of here. Like, and that's why I tell folks, it's one of the reasons why I was always such a big believer in non-team run supporter clubs. Like, not where you're not on the payroll, you don't get nothing from them. No. You got to work apart. It's like you got to be like a trust, like Plex. One of the things we talked a lot about was I wish there were more like supporters trust, where we like really work together to find these things. But the issue is, it's that it's so sycophantic because they're so desperate to like make this their shot. There's always a purpose, this underlying goal. I'm gonna do this because I'm gonna work for the team. I'm gonna do this because this is gonna get me. Like, stop doing these things because you're using it as a tool to achieve something for yourself.
A step,
right. It's always a step, and we've seen that. And it's like, I want to tell these people, it's like, folks, the same people you see on the way up are the people you're going to see on the way down. Don't forget that.
That's damn true.
Don't ever forget that. That is a truism. It's a great, it's very, so very true, and honestly, I think people will be better off for this because in the end, it's one of the reasons why a lot of players had terrible agents, right? And this is a kind of related thing. Like, I've seen how some of the contracts look and I've seen how some of the advice has gone. And I'm like, man, stop doing things because you want something out of somebody all the time. You can do it in an open way to say, let's work together and everyone's going to win. But the way you see these things, there's like a certain predatory nature in people. And the truth is, it's in everybody. So don't play into it, you know? And also, like, quite frankly, this is one of the reasons why when teams are saying, oh, well, we don't have any news to talk about. Well, maybe if you didn't meme fucking 24 hours a day, like, you don't even have a TV show to talk about. Like talk about a TV show. Like, I'm always wondering, like, you're Toronto Defiant and you're like the Vancouver Titans. Like, just talk about Shoresy. Like, you want a TV show to talk about Shoresy.
Yeah.
It's a little bit out there. It's a little bit crude, but it's like, it's about like senior league hockey in Sudbury. Like, you can get into that. Like, that's what I think is so funny, right? But then it's like, oh, but we got to satisfy our media people and we're tied to Universal Music. So we're going to play this Control-Alt-Delete song because it's real popular. I'm like, this is a really good way to be the most generic, sanitized, cleaned up version. But also, speaking of the trash talk thing, you get actual supporters together and anybody could tell you this, right? You can't say those things. Look, you can try. You can really try. But I guarantee you do that enough in person and someone's going to punch you in the face. And the thing is, that's how you know how to learn how to trash talk. So it's how to like kind of like dig in folks and not get punched in the face. Right. And the thing is, no one has to deal with that ever, you know? And I don't know. I think it's just in such a weird spot. And that's why people are bad at it. They say things too personal, too dark. It's weird. It's weird.
Well, either that or just roast your friends over the internet like we did last week.
Pretty much. But we might have another reason to roast each other. So without further ado,
we're so bad.
We're terrible.
We're so bad.
So,
well, I think Richard's the only one who's got one right so far.
Yeah, who I think a true, like, straight up victorious week, had the scoreline called and everything like that. Bravo. But so before the stream, I asked the guys to we're all made our prediction, not only for who's going to win in each region, but who you think the final matchup is going to be. Like, who's going to make it all the way to the finals through the losers bracket or whatever. Who are going to be your final clashes and who is going to be. And there was a lot of similarities, couple little key differences, but without further ado, here are all of our selections.
I just want to see this graphic.
So now I have at least a more clean graphic. So in the NA side, we're all selecting the San Francisco Shock. Asterisk on Richard, because I did not accept his answer. I didn't tell him this, but I didn't. He basically told me, he goes, he thinks it's going to be the Gladiators and the Shock, and quote, but something funny is going to happen and Toronto Defiant is going to win it all.
It's true.
So
it's true.
I would not accept that answer because it's crazy pants and it is the ramblings of a madman drunk on Tim Hortons. And so I did not allow it. So I have to
I do prefer McDonald's coffee.
Okay, fair enough. See, now your sanity is returning. But generally, I think San Francisco looks very good. You guys think the Gladiators will make the finals. I still think the top two are going to end up there. I think it's going to be Dallas, who maybe hits it skids somewhere in like round 2 or something like that, and then battles back to the finish. But we're all feeling, logically speaking, Shock has got this pretty locked in.
Yeah, just on form and just I think I've only dropped like 2 or 3 maps the whole stage.
Yeah, the map diff for Shock is pretty.
You would have thought with a team full of rookies that we'd be doing this well.
Fuel Shock. So, I'm looking at Super Black Guy's predictions because I have a feeling they'll come back and haunt us.
Yeah.
He's saying Fuel Shock, Fuel wins 4-2.
Richard,
Spark Dragons.
Okay, so let's throw this out there. Matt, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Why do you think the Fuel will be the second team?
Oh, I mean, so Fuel has, I think they had, I mean, other than that 3-0 at the beginning versus Houston, they've lived up to their number 2 spot. I think Shock kind of shocked me, no pun intended, and they've just shot up the rankings and with good reason. Like you said, that map diff is crazy. Yeah, and all
really good. It's really good.
I think Fuel have started to find their footing, and with the Zarya comp being not full meta, but pretty prominent, pretty popular, I think Hanbin is one of the best Zaryas in the world.
Yeah, I mean, people are they're using Zarya. That's the thing, right? Like, I think with one tank, you can make her work, but you've got to adapt the play style. And Hanbin is dope. Like, that's the thing. He's a dope Zarya. So yeah, it's gnarly, man.
So
what he can pull off.
Okay, so
Yep.
Richard, over to you. 30 seconds. Why do you think the Gladiators are the second team?
Honestly, just like pound for pound consistency, and they're just solid team structure and play. They're just good. They're just a solid team, honestly. And
Yeah.
actually, I think they have an easier bracket side. That's the other thing. If you take a look at their side of the bracket, I think they can clear it
Yeah.
faster.
I'd say because my argument for the Gladiators was the fact that they're versatile. It's like you don't see them one tricky one comp
Nope.
the entire
True.
time.
That's true.
It's like Fuel have got Zarya Winston comps. You've got other teams have got like this one composition. Gladiators, in that match against Atlanta, we saw them play Reinhardt comp. We saw
Yep.
them play double sniper.
Sigma came out.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the double sniper Sigma. And then previous matches, they could run the dive, they could run the Zarya. They've got a lot of comps. So they go, okay, after map 1, this comp isn't working. We'll just plug these players in instead and
Yep.
go an entirely new comp. So I think that versatility could be the key to them going all the way. Whether it be in the winners bracket or the losers bracket, that could be the factor.
I would not. It's all. I think it's all plausible, and I think they've been finding their footing. Meanwhile, over in the East, we're all obviously feeling a little bit of pink anime meminess, as we all have sparks somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But Richard, you feel like, we call back to what we talked a little bit earlier. You think Seoul is going to at least push to the end there?
Yeah, I have a feeling they're going to play Spark to knock down, and then they're going to end up in the finals. That's the thing. So,
what makes you think that?
Well, I don't think they can beat Hangzhou. That's shorter.
Sure.
I just think Hangzhou will just beat them, and they're on the same side of the bracket. I mean, you're going to win, then lose, and then end up in the final because they're better than the rest of the teams that remain.
You think Seoul's going to beat Shanghai somewhere in there?
I do.
Okay.
I mean, I have confidence in Seoul picking it up just based off of momentum. But I just have to see how that holds. But I think in the end, like, Spark is just gonna clean it up. For me, it was just figuring out who their opponent would be, right? But I do think Spark is gonna clean this one up.
Yeah, I think Spark is. I believe in Spark supremacy right now. I here, but Plex, you still think the Dragons have what it takes to pull it out? That's what they said.
I mean, Spark, they've got a lot of rookies. They play this aggressive, high tempo Overwatch with no fear. But
you think it'll backfire?
Sorry?
You think it'll backfire?
In a way, I think it's more of the fact that if Shanghai can counter them properly, like Fate, I've always believed, even when it was on Mayhem, was a very calming influence. Like, if they play Fate, I think they should be okay. It's like he can sort of keep everybody calm and focused, things like that. Who Are You is really good on the Genji.
Yeah, dude. Who Are You? Who was kind of, again, from everything, it was kind of like a meme, one trick, like who was like, yeah, he's not going to get any playtime. Like he's just sitting there, going to be benched the whole season. You've got Lip and Fleta, but dude, they've come in. He's played the Genji. He's fucking popped.
Yeah, it's like there's him on the Genji match. You got Fleta with his versatility, can basically play anything. You got Lip, who's basically, it's kind of a similar thing with Gladiators, where you have Kevster plus one other. With Dragons, it's Lip plus one other.
Yep, depending on what you need.
Yeah, and I think bring Who Are You in for, say, Gibraltar as an example, because that's got a lot of Genji-centric positions.
Sure.
And then, obviously, Dorada's another one where you could potentially run the Genji. Then a Fleta in reserve for the maps where Genji isn't as strong.
Yeah.
Then you also got the consistency of Izayaki and Lee Jae-gong. Granted, Lee Jae-gong is a little bit aggressive, but but those two can put in the work on the support line. And I think overall, Spark, no pun intended on this one, might burn out in a longer series.
By the way, did you all see? Was it Lee Jae-gong this weekend who had the 4-man boop on? And then cleaned it up by killing the last member. He basically had a team wipe solo.
Yeah, it's like
on Lijiang Tower. Holy shit.
Yeah. See, I think if it was a short 3-map series, Spark might edge it, but in a longer series, I think Dragon's quality could shine through.
Which the finals will be 5-map, best of 7, right?
First to 4, yeah.
First to 4, okay. So best of 7, yes. So yeah, that's a fair point with it. With that, like again, yeah, I didn't think about that because it's in a 3 map, you could squeak out 2 maps, but in a longer series, that a little bit more of that endurance.
Yeah.
Maybe the more mature Dragons roster has the edge here. That's actually pretty. It's actually pretty interesting there, Plex. But unfortunately, it is that time of the show. We have to be. We all got it wrong. Although I will say Asterisk is on the field for this one. I at least got the team right. You guys both went with Atlanta.
I know.
For the
We should
Atlanta
never
Glass
believe
match.
in Atlanta.
I know.
It's really hard to predict the games this year, isn't it?
It's extremely hard.
Yeah.
And I love it.
I
so
love
what happens when we believe in a city that
No
drinks so
joke.
much Coca-Cola. Pepsi's better.
No joke. I think the season's going to be the best one because it's just so volatile. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, dude, metas and everything are going to shift so much. It's going to be. I think it'll be really interesting, and especially because they're going to have to patch. It's a new game and it's betas, so they're going to have to patch. Pretty aggressively.
Yeah, like, watch them bring back stuns.
You know, they might. It's not going to be like little like, oh, we're going to increase the damage by half amount here, or just cool down by half a second here. No, we're going to see some pretty significant patches as people and player and character and new characters are introduced too.
Here's our big issue, honestly, is that if the game actually gets released before the end of the season, like if it actually gets released, full release,
which I doubt.
It means that. Which I hope it doesn't, because the patch frequency would increase based off of large scale player response and complaints, which will send us into it'll destroy the end of the league season. Right?
I think
it gets so random.
I think we get betas through the end of the year, and then the full release, including the PvE. I'm hoping Q1 2023 is my
That's a long time from now. Well, at least we'll have Gundam Evolution by then.
But
I was wondering
hopefully we'll keep getting some decent beta. Hopefully they're longer than 2-3
I just hope I hope it's more than 2 weeks, right? That's the thing.
Yes.
It is. So, it's been frustrating to like watch the league and not be able to play the game. Then you go back to Overwatch 1, it's like a sad, horrible
I know.
Of just despair and just delusion.
It just feels like there's a disconnect between league and player base, isn't there?
Well, it's actually weird. We're watching a league for a game we can't play. It's actually completely nonsensical.
I know. And
one of the reasons why it's tough to make some assessments, because we're like, well, why didn't he try this? I'm like, how much harder is it to do that in the game? And we're doing it all. I mean, even we have to speculate these days off of like play requirements and shifts. But we'll see. We did do pretty badly though.
So
but I'm
never believing in Atlanta again.
I chose the right team. I just had the wrong score line.
Results. You still lose.
I know. I am admitting that. I'm just giving myself a little bit of a high five.
Right.
But for punishment today, Plex has we're going to do a dramatic reading of a scene, which I've been told is ridiculous. Where do you want to put it?
Okay, I'm going to put the Word document. Hopefully this works.
Yep, I see it.
Test this in our section.
So we have this is from what? Yeah, explain this, Plex.
This is a scene from Blackadder Goes Forth, which is the
fourth. Oh my god, such a good series.
Yeah, this is from.
Oh god.
So I'm just going to bring up on my side as well. So just to confirm, can you guys see it?
Yeah, I got it up on. I got it open. Yep.
Okay, so the scene is the episode's called Captain Cook, and it's basically the whole premise of Blackadder Goes Forth is Blackadder's trying to get out of going over the top in World War One.
Okay.
So in this
who's who? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to give us a setup, and I'll assign characters. Okay. So the setup is this Blackadder and his 2 lackeys, Baldrick and Lieutenant George, have been sent out into no man's land to draw enemy positions and things like that. It's like reconnaissance, and they're trying to dodge gunfire and keep their heads down, things like that.
Okay.
And this is the scene. They've just arrived in no man's land. They're trying to pick up what's going on. So I'm going to play the part of Blackadder for this.
Okay.
Richard, you're going to be playing Lieutenant George.
Sweet.
Yeah. You know who Lieutenant George is, though, just so I know.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I was like,
he's a well-meaning
10 or 11.
He's well-meaning, he's a bit of a ditz.
All right, cool.
Bit of an airhead. And then Matt, you're going to be playing the part of Baldrick, and this is the reason why.
Of course, I'm the ball.
Yeah, well, it's not because of that. It's because, well, Baldrick, for those who know Blackadder, is a complete idiot.
Then it's very apropos. I've never seen the show. I have no idea what the premise is or what.
Oh, it's a wonderful show.
Yeah. So, and obviously Blackadder, he's the more serious. He's the one with actual brains in the trio.
Oh,
so,
of course, you get to be that guy.
Yeah, and also
Of
because I
course.
might be able to pull off a Rowan Atkinson. So here we go.
All
All right.
Okay, so this is going to be a dry read. So
Cold
brace
read,
yourselves,
ladies
folks.
and- yeah.
Okay, so from the top. So Blackadder, Baldric, and George crawling across no man's land. All right, total and utter quiet. Do you understand? So, for instance, if any of us crawl over any barbed wire, they must not go on no account. Go ah!
If you just crawled over some barbed wire, sir.
No, Baldric, I can just put my elbow in a blob of ice cream.
Oh, that's all right then.
Now, where the hell are we?
Well, it's difficult to say. We appear to have crawled into an area marked with mushrooms.
What do those symbols denote?
That we're in a field of mushrooms?
Lieutenant, that is a military map. It is unlikely to list interesting flora and fungi. Look at the key and you'll discover that those mushrooms aren't for picking.
Oh, good lord. You're quite right, sir. It says mine. So these mushrooms must belong to the man who made the map.
Either that.
either-
Oh, that's all right.
Either that or we're in the middle of a minefield.
Oh dear.
So he owns the field as well?
Gunfire, gunfire.
Bang, ba bang, ba bang, ba bang, ba bang, 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 bang.
They're firing, sir. They're firing.
Yes, thank you, Lieutenant. If they hit me, you'll be sure to point that out, won't you? Now, come on, let's get on with your drawing and let's get out of here.
Well, surely we ought to wait for the flare, sir. You see, my medium is light.
Just use your imagination, for heaven's sake. Wait a minute. That's the answer. I can't believe I've been so stupid.
Yeah, that is unusual because I'm usually the stupid one.
Well, I'm not overfurnished in the brain department.
Well, on this occasion, I've been the stupidest of all.
Oh, now, sir, I will not have that. Baldric and I will always be more stupid than you. Isn't that right, Baldric? Stupid, stupid, stupid.
Yeah. Stupidity, stupidity, stupidity.
Stupidest, stupid. Oh, stupids in the whole history of stupidityness.
Finished? I think the obvious point is this. We'll go straight out to the dugout and do the painting from there. You do the most imaginative, most exciting possible drawing of German defences from your imagination.
Oh, I see. Now that is a challenge.
Quite. Now, come on, let's get out of here.
Oh, sir, just one thing. If we should happen to tread on a mine, what do we do?
Well, normal procedure, Lieutenant, is to jump 200 feet into the air and scatter yourself over a wide area. And scene.
Oh my god.
I feel like I'm doing this character that the George no justice. The
Yeah.
delivery is so.
Well, it's Hugh Laurie.
That's
So.
why
it's
we're. Oh,
so
is it?
hard? Yeah,
That's Hugh Laurie, yeah.
That's
yeah.
fantastic.
Baldric is Tony Robinson.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
You've got. I
I'll
think
show
that
you-
you can actually. The Blackadder series is actually available. I think it's on Tubi or Prime, but it is available
Yeah.
stateside. You got to watch it.
All
It's
right,
a
I'll check it out.
stream.
But I think I was
Add
like
that to your
11 or
watch list.
12 when I watched it.
I'll
Yeah, I mean,
definitely
my
have to
dad's
check
got
it
the
out.
box set, so I've got
Yeah.
no excuse not to know it.
Brilliant.
Well,
So anyway-
folks, yeah, that'll do it. We all got it wrong. We'll see if and how we get it. I don't know how we're gonna do this because we picked like 2 winners and we picked the final. I don't know. We're gonna figure out something for next week. But the kickoff clash starts on. Is it starting on Friday or does it start on Thursday? Technically,
Depends on where you are.
I mean,
So
well,
is it-
yeah,
Different time zones and all that.
but in the West, I don't think there are any Thursday games. I don't believe. let me
I don't
just
believe
make
so.
sure.
No, I think no,
It
it's
all
on
kicks
Thursday,
off
Thursday.
properly on Friday, is it?
No, Thursday.
Oh,
right?
there are
3
some
p.m.
Thursdays.
Yeah, Washington and San Francisco, Thursday at 3.
All right. Well, then there you go. So keep an eye out for those. Also keep an eye out for an announcement coming from either the Discord, my social media, and Richard and Plex will share it. There's something we're looking forward to sharing with you over the next day or two regarding the kickoff clash. So
Yes.
keep your eyes on social medias. Check us out on the Discord. And guys, until next time, keep your eyes on the kickoff clash. Things are imploding. And so for the great Yamamoto Bear, for Plexomatic, for the Drama King, we have been overbotched. You don't do the same. Until next time, everybody, take care.